Have you ever based your entire personality off of your favorite album that came out before you were even born? So let me guess, A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, Blurry Face, 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Gotcha. Emo albums have always had a huge impact on different communities, which got me thinking, what's the best emo album? We're asking the right questions, okay? Now, everybody has their different opinions, but I think there's a few things that make a good album. So today, I'm gonna rank those albums based off of not only actual sound, but lyrics and impact on the community itself. First, I'd like to give a disclaimer. I am aware that most of these bands are considered pop punk or post-hardcore. I don't care. I really don't. I don't care, and nobody does, really. These are bands that I consider emo by association, and if you don't agree with me, that's fine. Everybody is entitled to their own opinions. On another note, you are free to enjoy music however you'd like. These are just my personal opinions. Now, let's get into the ranking. The first album we have is A Fever You Can't Sweat Out by Panic! At the Disco. This album was obviously released when the band was still together in 2005, which was before I was born. Feel elderly yet? I feel like it's only fair to give this album a 10 out of 10 just for cultural impact in itself. I'm not gonna go too in depth, but what I will say is I based my 18th birthday party around this entire album, and I dressed like our Lord and Savior Ryan Ross, which to my best knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, wrote most of the songs on this album. And I also made a photo board dedicated just to this album, which was used a lot, and I still have it, so if anyone wants it, let me know. These are the kind of lyrics that take you from just doing a little boogie, not really sure of what they mean, to absolutely screaming the lyrics in your car like your life depends on your performance to literally nobody. There's so many metaphors and deeper meanings within these lyrics, so much so that when I was a kid, I would sit down on my mom's phone just scrolling through the album and just picking out my favorite lyrics from it and deciphering what they mean, because I needed to know every ounce of this album. I needed to have it engraved into my veins like heroin. Obviously, if you know this album well, and if you don't, I highly recommend you look that shit up. You're aware of the feeling when you listen to a song for the first time and you're just like, oh my god, this song is so good. But then you listen to it a few more times and then you really get into the lyrics and then you're just like, oh my fucking god, I need this song engraved into my soul. That's the kind of album that this is. This album has such good lyrics. Sometimes they require a little digging to really understand what they mean, but overall for lyrics, I think I'm gonna give this album a 7 out of 10. As far as actual sound, there's not really too much to say, but I would never forgive myself if I ranked this album any lower than an 11 out of 10, which is kind of cheating, breaking the scale, but I don't care. I don't care. And if you've listened to this album before, then you understand me, because there's no possible way I can rank it any lower with the impact that it has had on my life and the fact that I have lost my voice screaming these lyrics in my car going to work. They're so important. This album is so important. 11 out of 10 for actual sound. The next album we have is one I'm pretty sure most of you have been waiting for. 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge by My Chemical Romance. This album came out in 2004, even earlier than Fever. Y'all already know what I'm gonna say. Y'all already know what I'm gonna say, bro. This is the album that most people resonate with emo kids. Seeing someone wear this merch in public is equivalent to the female orgasm. Every time I see somebody wearing anything with the Demolition Lovers on it, I just automatically assume that they can do no wrong. And just for that, I'm gonna give this album a 10 out of 10 for impact. Now, you guys are gonna hate me for this, and it kind of goes against what I just said praising the album, but this album was definitely not my most listened to album like ever. It just wasn't really my cup of tea. I was a Pierce the Veil kid. My best friends loved MCR, and I just kind of strayed away from it because I stayed in my own little circle of Pierce the Veil. And while it's still a great album, I really only listen to it occasionally to this day. The only time that I can really recall listening to it a lot was when I was 12 years old. And occasionally I'll put the CD on in my car because I have the CD. I love the energy and the chaotic screaming that is Gerard Way himself. However, this album was just never one I was really jumping to listen to a lot. As far as sound and lyrics, I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for sound and probably 6.5 for lyrics. The next album we have is Collide with the Sky. Wow. This album changed my life. I'm a little biased because Pierce the Veil is my favorite band of all time, but I'm not the only one who feels this way. There's so many accounts on TikTok that are dedicated to this band with thousands of followers. And overall, I'd say the community is pretty great. If you know Pierce the Veil, you may have heard of something called the Hold On Till May girl, which is when the lead singer, Vic Fuentes, brings up a dedicated fan to the stage and he sits them down and he sings to them. What song? Hold On Till May. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say Hold On Till May is probably their most popular song, at least off of this album. This song has saved so many people from doing things that they shouldn't do. Just the song in general has its own impact. I mean, people are getting it tattooed. They're referencing it in their graduations. But I can't talk about this album only bringing up one song. Can you guess the next song I'm going to bring up? King for a Day. It's King for a Day. If you don't know that song, it's the one that's like, she's mine. You stay away from her. It's not her time. And then they have like the fucking alpha wolf where he's like ripping his clothes off. And it became like a whole meme on TikTok. The song was actually a trend on TikTok for a while. Interestingly. It's become one of those songs that people scream at you in public and they think that it's funny somehow. I'm gonna give this album a 10 out of 10 for cultural impact. Pierce the Veil's lyrics are by far my favorite lyrics anybody has ever written, and I don't think anything will ever come even close to that. I literally have a list of my favorite Pierce the Veil quotes in my notes app like I'm some sort of fangirl. My senior quote was a Pierce the Veil lyric. No, I will say this album definitely isn't my favorite Pierce the Veil album, but I do think it's the most culturally significant out of all of them. I'm going to give Collide with the Sky a 6 out of 10 for sound, just because I think the other Pierce the Veil albums are just better. Now we have Mania by Fall Out Boy. I cannot be the only one that remembers Frank painting himself purple in honor of this album when it first came out. That was peak era of YouTube, and nobody can tell me otherwise. At first, I couldn't find any evidence that this had actually happened and it wasn't some dream I just made up 25 years ago, but luckily I was able to find one singular picture of it on the internet. I think this album had a pretty big impact on us as a whole. From the most popular emo YouTuber painting his whole body purple, to makeup looks, to people dyeing their hair purple. Everybody dyeing their hair purple. Like, literally everywhere you looked, there was an emo kid with purple hair when this album came out. While the cultural impact of Mania was really good, it was pretty short-lived, and for that, I'm gonna probably give it a 7 out of 10 for cultural impact. There's not much I really have to say about the lyrics in this album, except that they're really good. Wow. One thing I can say for sure is this album is so underrated in the big 2025. When this album first came out, I was all over it, and of course it became middle school me's #1 personality trait. And another thing I will say is I can't listen to just one song from this album. If I have my playlist on shuffle and a song from Mania comes up, I'm automatically obligated to just listen to the entire album in its entirety in order. I can't listen to just one song because the album is so addictive. This album is like drugs. Drugs. Last but definitely not least, we have Blurry Face by 21 Pilots, which came out in 2015. Now, I know what you're thinking. Where are the other 19 pilots? I don't know, you fucking idiot. I can find so much evidence of me being obsessed with this album in middle school. It was kind of the opening of my emo experience before I even really knew what emo was. And I know I wasn't the only one. The red eyeshadow, the Josh Dunn fan fictions, there was so much with this album. And I think I'm going to give this album a 10 out of 10 for cultural impact because I don't see why I'd rate it lower than that. As far as the lyrics, I don't really have a lot to say about Blurry Face lyrics. They're good. They're alright. The lyrics I do remember are pretty good. They're pretty meaningful. I'm going to give this album a 6 out of 10 for lyrics. Actual sound, this album is okay. It's okay. Obviously, it was my favorite when I was, like, younger, but it's definitely not anything that I relatively try to listen to now. I don't really come close to this album ever. I don't really listen to it, to tell you the truth. Like, I just don't listen to it that well. And for sound, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. That's the video, guys. If you like this video, make sure you leave it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe because it really helps a small channel out. If you didn't see your favorite album and you would like me to make a part 2 to this video, just comment down below. Tell me what your favorite emo album was as a kid or your favorite emo album now, and I'll do all of them. Again, these are just my opinions. If you think differently, the world still turns. It is okay. Like I said, please make sure you subscribe. I also stream on Twitch. My Twitch is linked in the description, as well as all my other socials like my Discord and my Instagram. I hope you guys have an interesting day, and bye.